I'm Darius, your local realtor friend, and today we are in my favorite neighborhood of Lakemont here in Bellevue, Washington. We're standing right in front of my listing that's gonna close in just a few days, and the buyer of the house is doing their final walkthrough this afternoon. And I thought it was a perfect opportunity to go through the home and tell you what is the final walkthrough, why is it important that you get it done, what exactly you should be looking for, and most importantly, what do you do if you find issues with the home? If you don't do a final walkthrough and then you end up buying the house and you move in and you find things that are wrong that could have been discovered ahead of time, it's now your house and your problem. However, if there's things that you find that are issues that could be repaired during the walkthrough before closing, you still have some leverage to ask the seller to make the repairs or give you the credit or make sure the situation is resolved before the transaction is officially recorded. So let's go inside and take a look at what it is that you should be looking for during a final walkthrough. The first thing is pretty easy. If you had an inspection report that was done, or if there were any items in the contract that the seller has committed to doing, you want to make sure those items were done before closing. So bring your inspection report, bring the contract. If the seller said they're going to replace the water heater, make sure there's a new water heater here, or if they're going to fix a specific outlet, make sure the outlet is working, or whatever the case may be. This is your opportunity to go down the list and make sure that the seller has done everything that they said they would do. So the second thing you want to look for in the walkthrough is also easy to identify. You just make sure that the seller has all of their stuff, their furniture, their trash, whatever the case may be, out of the house. So as you can see, the house is vacant, so it's ready. In this case, the seller has left specific items because the buyer said they wanted those particular items. Anything that is left in the home after closing becomes your property. So if they left you something nice and expensive, great, good for you. Other case, if there's a lawnmower that doesn't work in the garage or some junky piece of furniture, it now becomes your problem to get rid of it. The next item is fairly minor, but I would go through the home and make sure that all of the light switches throughout the house are operational and all of the light fixtures work. That also includes fireplaces. They operate off a light switch, so if a fireplace is out, you want to find out now. Another bigger ticket item is, I guess, twofold. One, you want to make sure that all of the appliances that were listed in the contract are still at the home so that the seller did not take the fridge with them or the washer and dryer with them if they were supposed to stay. Also, I would go a step beyond that and make sure that all of the major appliances are operational. So make sure that the microwave is working, turn on the oven, check the fridge and the freezer and make sure that it's not leaking and it's staying cool. I would also run a cycle for a dishwasher, make sure the cooktop is working, make sure the hood is working. I would also go and find the washer and dryer if they're staying with the home and make sure that those are working fine. Because again, here's the thing. If you move in and you realize that the fridge is leaking or not working, or the washer and dryer is broken, you will end up buying new appliances where now, prior to closing, you still have an opportunity for the seller to repair the issue. Another fairly common yet expensive item that you want to make sure is working well is your furnace and AC if there is one. And it could be as simple as turn on the heat, make sure the heat kicks on, turn on the AC, make sure AC kicks on. Because again, if you move in and you have no heat, it's your problem and it could be thousands of dollars to replace the furnace or get it repaired. Another thing that I would be sure to check while I'm doing my final walkthrough is make sure that all of the sinks are working fine. I would flush every toilet, run every shower, and make sure that everything is working well and draining properly. I would also take the time to look under every sink and make sure there's no active leaks or no water damage that's noticeable. If there's any issues with plumbing, that could be an expensive fix down the road. And the last thing I wanted to mention today, we're getting kind of in the nitty-gritty in the details, but I would still take time to do this, is I would open and close every window and door to make sure that everything is working fine, make sure the locks are operational, and make sure the windows are sliding well. Windows are very expensive, so there's an issue, and I've seen it numerous times when a window had to be replaced, but it wasn't caught ahead of time. So take the extra 10-15 minutes, go thoroughly through the home, you'll be glad that you did. So all of those items are what I would recommend looking for if I was to personally buy this house. Every property is unique, so if the house that you're buying has something else that we did not cover, the moral of the story is just make sure you're thorough, make sure you go through everything and make sure that all of the items are operational in good order and are not going to be a surprise after you move into the house after closing. And now that we've covered everything that you need to look for specifically, let's talk about some other important dates and details as they pertain to the final walkthrough. So first, who attends the final walkthrough? In most cases, it's just the buyer and the buyer's agent. and they schedule a final walkthrough a few days before closing. So in our case, today's Friday, the buyer's doing it this afternoon, and the closing is scheduled for Monday. That way, if they discover any items that need attention, they still have a few days to ask us to make things right. And probably the most important question is, what do you do if you find items that are not as you expect them? So if the seller left items behind, or if something is broken, or if the seller took the washer and dryer that was supposed to stay, whatever the case may be, since we haven't officially closed yet, you do have some options. So first, what you could do is you could ask the seller to make the necessary repairs, or to return the items, or to remove the trash, whatever the case may be, and they would be obligated contractually to do that. Otherwise, you could delay closing. Another thing is, if there's not enough time for them to do what needs to be done, maybe they need to hire an electrician to do something and there's just not one available before Monday, you could negotiate and get a seller credit, meaning the work could get scheduled ahead of time, or you could get a quote and the seller could pay for the repairs, and the repairs could happen after closing. That's fairly common and it's not a big deal. And lastly, if there's something major, and we don't see this often, but let's say there was a major leak, or I've even had a situation where, not my listing, but a house burned down. Clearly, in that specific situation, the buyer is no longer purchasing that home, right? And that's an extreme example. But if there's some major issue with the home that cannot be resolved, or a credit could not be negotiated, there's still time to terminate the agreement, for you to get your earnest money back, and for you to move on and buy another home. So I hope you found this video helpful. A walkthrough is a very important step in the home buying process. And too often I see where the buyer doesn't even do one, or if they do one, they just run through the home very quickly. Yet on the other end, there's always a risk that you're gonna find surprises that are gonna cost you a lot of money. So take the extra time. It's a big purchase. Go through it thoroughly and make sure that you know exactly what you're buying.